Meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was hard to do. Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Here.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Thompson,
Oops. Forgot to unmute herself.
all right, I see you on the screen, so I will mark you here, but please do unmute.
Here.
There we go.
How about that?
Councilmember
Okay.
Bryan,
Here.
Councilmember Davidson,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson, Councilmember Richardson,
Here.
Councilmember McCallum,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances. 1, employee recognition.
Tonight we're recognizing Assistant Chief Dave Michael. He's our training chief at the fire department. He has made it through 25 years of service for the city of Belton. Dave and I have been together for a long time. We served on the same shift for quite a while. We promoted to captain at the same time. We could tell some stories, but we'd probably both get in trouble if we told them, and so we're going to just keep our positions. But he does a great job. He takes his job seriously, and is just he's done a lot better than the last training chief, by the way. So just glad to have him around. Look forward to finishing out a career with him, and just congratulations on your 25 years.
Not my night. Not prepared.
Scott Lyons, Police Chief, and joining me is Lieutenant Norman Shriver. He is the Commander of Support Services, which he's going to retire as of Friday, January 31st, 2025, after 38 plus years of service to this community. That's some accomplishment. Not very many citizens would actually know who he is because he is the face behind the police department for 38 years. He started out at the age of 14 wanting to be in law enforcement. He spent 5 years volunteering with the fire department and dispatch, and he is a hometown hero raised in Belton. He graduated from Belton High School in 1977. I remember that year very clearly, because I collected ball cards that year. But his career has spanned October 14th, 1986 to Friday, January 31st, 2025. He was promoted to sergeant April 1, 2005. He was promoted to lieutenant September 20th of 2015. He is the commander of Support Services Division, like I stated before. He manages the 911 Dispatch Center, a public safety answering point. He interacts with Mark in our region and other police departments. He is the Information Technology Service Manager. For a long time, he was doing that by himself. He also manages the Evidence and Property Room. He is the major reason that our 911 Dispatch Center is recognized for its professionalism and efficiency in handling the highest number of calls in Cass County every year. His secondary duties include managing all levels of technology within the police department. That goes all the way from where the call comes in and dispatch, the patrol vehicles connecting to MDTs and radios that are in the cars, or the radios that are on the hips and on the shoulders of police officers, and even the fire department. He also manages the body-worn camera system and helps us upload a lot of other videos related to investigations. He's in charge of the records management system and building security, and much, much more. I could go on. And it's all the things I'm sure he got into law enforcement to do, is to manage those things. And above all, he's been a constant, steady presence within our police department. He is one of those individuals inside the police department that everybody goes to when they need something. He's always got a good attitude and always willing to help. And he reflects the best of the police department. Please join me. Sorry. I'm sorry, buddy. He's been my friend. Please join me in recognizing his 38-plus years in service to this community. You well deserve this.
Item E, unfinished business. 1, motion to approve the final reading of Bill 2025-02.
As amended.
As amended, I'm sorry.
An ordinance amending Section 11-106C of the Code of Ordinances and executing the rate change pursuant to the contract for waste collection services between the City of Belton, Missouri and GFL Environmental, Inc.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're up.
This is the second reading of the GFL rate we discussed last meeting. The only difference they amended is the date that it is effective, because we didn't approve it completely last meeting, so we pushed the date back to reflect it being approved tonight. It's the only difference from last time.
Any questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
White. Aye. Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Pryan.
Aye.
Motion passes. 2, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2025-03.
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2025 adopted city budget for the purpose of purchasing 2 council-approved dump trucks and purchasing 8 golf carts with GPS.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just real quick, I thought I heard 8, so I just want to clarify it's 80.
I thought she said 8 too.
That's why I paused.
Apparently I said 8. Yes, I apologize. It is 80. We'll give Jay 80. And not 8. Apologize, Jay.
Anybody else? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. F, new business. 1, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-05.
An ordinance repealing and replacing Unified Development Code Section 42-110 related to lead-free plumbing materials in public and private plumbing systems connected to the public drinking water system.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before this evening is a UDC text amendment to repeal and replace Section 42-110 related to lead-free plumbing materials. The existing code has a higher percentage of lead material allowances than what is required or allowed by federal regulations to be considered lead-free. This replacement language includes the updated percentages and is in compliance with federal regulations that were adopted in 2020. Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 21st, at which no one spoke in favor or in opposition to these amendments, and the commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed amendments. Staff recommends approval of the amendments, and if there are no questions or concerns this evening, requests a second reading. Staff has been given notice to make these amendments as soon as possible to be in compliance with federal regulations and to avoid any potential citations related to that.
Any questions? Go ahead.
On the specific to the double reading, I was actually related to one of the questions I was going to ask, which is if this came out in 2020, I guess I'm trying to understand the delay there. Can you speak to that at all?
No. Greg, can you speak to that a little bit?
So back in 2020, there was a regulation change that they lowered the percentages of lead that was allowed in the system. We made a request that, that we go through the planning process to change the codes to make everything happen. At that time, we were told they were going to do a new comprehensive plan, and then they're going to update the code and make everything change in that series of steps to go to make the process work. So I've just kind of been waiting out the process to go through. Since then, the U.S. EPA has decided that January 31st is their due date for every city to pass an ordinance that says this is the new lead level. And so they called us up about a month ago and they said, we really would like you to pass this month. So that's why we are where we're at today.
Okay. We also put out, I think it was last year, a request for residents to take pictures of the water fixture going into their house. I believe it was related to making sure there weren't lead pipes in that. Did we have any concern with lead coming back from that perspective?
No, that's two completely separate issues. Those are lead service lines that go from our mains into somebody's house. And so that's another requirement that we have. We actually have 10 years now to view every single connection that's made to our system. There's 3 points of connection. There's one before the meter, there's one after the meter, and there's one at the house. We're required to view 2 of the 3 locations in the next 10 years, which they had a minimum number that they wanted seen in the first year, which we met that requirement, and now they have the 10-year steps that they're requiring us to do.
I understand it's a separate issue, I guess. But even with that, did we find that there was some, lead pipes or whatever in usage?
We only have one person that reported a lead pipe. We haven't gone out to actually dig it up and view it yet to see if it is actually lead. So it's just something that someone's turned into us as possibly being lead. We haven't actually verified it ourselves.
Okay.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
We have a motion for a second reading. Motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the second reading of Bill 2025-05.
An ordinance repealing and replacing Unified Development Code Section 42-110 related to lead-free plumbing materials in public and private plumbing systems connected to the public drinking water system.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I have a question,
Go ahead.
and it's kind of related to what Greg said earlier. Will we come up with a plan for the next 10-year plan? Is that something that we'll talk about in the coming future about how to put your eyes on those 3 sources?
The plan is pretty simple, is that we're going to have to go to every property that was built pre-1980 and dig a hole on the city side and the private side of every meter pit and view the connection. And so it's 10% per year, roughly 600.
Okay, and that process hasn't started yet, Greg?
No, it has not.
Okay, alrighty, thank you.
Go ahead.
Did I hear you say before 1980? So anything built after 1980, you don't have to?
Yes, it was illegal to have a service line connection after 1980 that was made of lead.
Okay.
Anybody else? Hearing none, roll call.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Bryan,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
Davidson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-06.
An ordinance approving the 24th Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 501 Pine Street project as redevelopment project 2025-1 and to authorize tax abatement as described therein.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. You're up, sir.
Do you want to open the hearing?
What? Oh, yeah, that's right, my bad. A public hearing regarding the proposed 24th Amendment to the Old Town of Belton redevelopment plan for redevelopment project 2025-01 pursuant to RSMO section 353.110.3 subparagraph 2 is now open. Now you're up.
Thank you, sir. The item before the council this evening is a request, or is the ordinance approving the 24th Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan. The applicant and the owner of 501 Pine Street is requesting a project approval in the amount of about $21,000. These improvements are focused entirely on the exterior of the home of a recladding and siding project. The estimated property taxes with these improvements could increase from $657 annually to about $1,317 annually over the 10-year abatement period. Although there will be a short-term decrease in taxes for the taxing entity, the long-term impact is positive by encouraging investment in Old Town Belton. The Old Town Belton Redevelopment Corporation recommended unanimous approval of the project on 2015. Staff also did post this as a public hearing and make notification to all of the taxing jurisdictions. If approved, staff will prepare the Memorandum of Understanding, the quitclaim deed, and certificate of tax abatement for approval by the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Corporation following the council's vote. Happy to answer any questions about the project. It's fairly straightforward, pretty much entirely exterior on the small home.
Any questions?
Do we need to close the public hearing before I can ask a question?
Should we? Or I
At
don't-
this point, I would ask for any public comment.
Any public comments for or against 2025-06? If you do, come to the microphone and state your name and address and speak your piece. Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing at this time and open it up for debate for council. Go ahead.
I do have one question about this. I noticed the application's filled out by Joshua Carr. I noticed that the GIS says Joshua Carr, but I also noticed in our packet it says Kara Anderson. So I'm going to assume that the packet is just incorrect, and just wanted to note that we correct that unless there's something else that needs to be looked at there.
Can you provide a page number?
Give me a moment, and I can.
Oh,
Were you quicker than me?
yeah, I think I found it.
I think it's page 20.
That would be just a typo. That was a previous applicant, but the 2025-01 501 Pine Street, Belton, Missouri, that is the correct address that would receive the abatement.
I kind of figured it was a typo, but I just wanted to clarify that. I see it on page 20 of the packet, kind of the second paragraph, if you will.
Thank you.
Yep.
It should also be noted that there was a address typo on the ordinance front page, and both of those will be corrected for final reading.
Otherwise, I'm in support of this, so.
All right. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor with the Scribner's errors fixed for next reading?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 3, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-07.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2024-4879, authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $15,250,000 of principal amount of general obligation bonds of the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. You're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The ordinance before you tonight is amending one that you guys approved back in October for our bond sale. The reason that we're having to amend it, the name of the bond actually has to change from 2024 to 2025 because we are now in 2025. The completion of the FY23 audit being so late has pushed all of the timelines back for us. Also, in the ordinance, it listed out our first payment that would have been in March. It is now being pushed out to September. So those are the 2 items that are being amended in this ordinance. And I would ask for 2 readings tonight, please, because we are actually, our next date is February 3rd, and that will be our competitive bond sale. So if I could get 2 readings tonight, that would be wonderful. Any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead.
This is probably a question for Greg more so than it is for you, but I'll throw it out there. So referring to the curb and street part of this project, or part of these bonds, right? That specific part, I believe previously you submitted a list that had all those, actually it might be in this as well, but you had a list that had all the places we were going. That hasn't changed, has it, for any particular reason? Okay.
Nope.
And remind me, was that curbs only, or was that streets and curbs as associated with those listed?
It's street repaving and curbs.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% certain. And then going back on that a little bit further, I think this was, if I understand, part of a 4-year plan to go through the city and update streets and curbs. What year are we in with this particular? Was this year 1 or is this?
This is year 4.
This is year 4.
This is
Perfect.
the end.
Thank you. That's what I needed.
Any other questions? Yeah. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2025-07.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2024-4879, authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $15,250,000 of principal amount of general obligation bonds of the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Pryan,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
Davidson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Consent agenda, 1 motion not available to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. H, communication from city council.
I don't have anything this evening.
I have a few things. One of them I want to bring up, believe it or not, since our Thursday meeting, I have already gotten a call from a concerned resident that is in favor of our fire sales tax and that extension of that sunset, but is concerned that others may be misinterpreting the conversation we had around it. One of those things, and so some of those I think we can bring up through a frequently asked questions type of thing that I can talk to you all about offline. I'm sure you've already been working on, and just something we probably want to maybe hurry up, given the fact that I'm already getting this type of call. But one of the other things was some maybe concerns around the fact that we had somewhat of an emergency meeting to bring that up. So I just want to make abundantly clear that the reason behind that was because ultimately the realization that this would save the city money, because it would avoid having a unnecessary election that we might potentially be on the hook for paying fully for in 2026, because we would not otherwise have a need. So I just wanted to throw it out there and make that abundantly clear as to the reason for that taking place. And additionally, there was a question about the double reading. And the reason for that double reading, of course, being that today was the last day to get a ballot measure on the 2025 ballot. So I just want to clarify that as well. So in other words, that we kind of didn't have a choice in terms of a double reading, because we wouldn't have had time to do two separate single readings. Just wanted to put that out there in case there was any confusion from anybody watching or present. I do have some parks updates, and the list is quite long as usual. Parks has been very busy. Just want to remind, the February meeting will take place on February 18th, and this is due to the Monday holiday. Spring sports signups are currently still open. And more information is available on the website, or of course you can always call the front desk at High Blue. And I previously listed, so last meeting I listed several upcoming Parks and Recs events. In the interest of not repeating myself over and over and over, I am just going to list the upcoming ones for this month before our next meeting. We have, and going into next month, but we have Brick Mania taking place January 25th, and we have Art After Dark wine class taking place on February 11th. And there's more than that. There's a long list going through March. If you're interested, of course, all that information is available on their website. They also, at the last park meeting, the rock stars of the quarter were announced, and that is Derek Brookard and Annette Braun. So if you know them and you see them around town, make sure you say congrats and thanks to them for all their hard work. Additionally, Smoot Park, here not too far from where we are presently, there's a bench dedicated to the police department that was donated by the Shriver family that you saw tonight as going through retirement. So an awesome addition to the city here, and just wanted to bring that up and point that out. So, okay, that is everything that I have.
I got nothing.
We had a very brief planning commission meeting, and it 100% involved the lead-free piping, so you already know what we talked about.
I was able to help a couple more nights with the homeless shelter at the warming shelter center, and the last night it was open, I believe we had 13 men and 5 women, so it was helpful. It's a good thing to volunteer.
Wanda?
The only thing I have is I hope that the mayor's mom has had enough snow. Other than that, I'm good.
I talked to her today, and I think she does.
Okay, that's
Or
good.
I think she
That's
has. I should say that. Go ahead.
Well, part of what I was going to mention is the warming center. It's been open about 5 or 6 nights, if I remember right. And one of the issues is they're having is they need volunteers to help. And so if anyone is interested in volunteering part of the time, they have shifts. Feel free to call or contact the Heart and Hands. They're doing a good service. They're helping keep people alive, and it's very important. So that's the one thing I have. The mayor and I went to Wichita last week to look at a organization called Tap and Paddle, which is an indoor pickleball, and it was quite exciting what they're doing there. And so I don't know where it will go, but it would be nice if Belton could lure someone like that in for an indoor competitive type pickleball. So it was very, very nice. So it's not a restaurant first, then pickleball. It's pickleball, then restaurant. So that's all I have.
Okay, I don't have much. I just want to again thank Norman Shriver for dedicating 38 years of his life to the city of Belton. So again, thank you. Oh, he's gone. So say it louder. Okay, that's all I got. City manager.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I have is that tomorrow morning from 6 to 9 a.m., the City of Belton is hosting a Hot Cakes for Heroes recognition breakfast, essentially to recognize the employees that went above and beyond during blizzard conditions and didn't have the luxury of either working from home or not coming in. But it is open to all employees, and the council is invited if they wanted to stop by. It's from 6 to 9. You don't have to by any stretch, but if you choose to, that's at your discretion. 6 to 9 a.m. at Memorial Station tomorrow morning. That's all I've got.
Anybody else? All right, K, items for review and discussion. Operational budget workshop. Do you have props?
No, just my water bottle.
Computer out.
But I did bring my laptop in case there's any questions that I need to look at. Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about the FY26 operational budget. In front of you is a nice big packet that includes everything that we're going to look at tonight. We're not going to go line item by line item. I know that you guys are really happy that we're not going to do that. But if you stop me at any point, if you have any questions about anything that we're talking about, everything in your packet is in order of what we're going to go through tonight. So again, stop me with any questions that you have. So tonight we're going to talk about some budget assumptions. We're going to do a funds overview, and that's where you're going to be looking at your packets in front of you. We're going to talk about general fund, economic development, streets, wastewater, solid waste, water, golf, debt service, the sales tax funds, some other minor funds, and then parks is going to be at the end because I've got their budget at the end, and then we're going to talk about some capital. And Brian's here if you guys have any specific questions about the capital that they're going to be purchasing this year. Okay, so this year we are proposing a 2.5% COLA along with a 2.5% step merit. So that's 5% total. That 5% won't start at the beginning of the year. The 2.5 COLA will, but then the merit comes as the employee's year of service anniversary date comes around. So we've got a 12% increase in health insurance premiums. That'll be the first 9 months, and then January, February, and March, I went ahead and put a 15% increase in there. Our plan year actually starts January, but again, our fiscal year starts April 1st. So there's actually 2 increases total with health insurance premiums. I've estimated a 5% growth in sales tax revenues. The last 2 years that I've done the budget, the revenues have come in a lot higher, so I am being a little bit more liberal with that. I think it's going to be okay that we do that this year. We are going to be receiving more than likely a 5% increase in water costs. Right now, we are not going to pass that on to the citizen. Of course, we can discuss that tonight, but that's the plan right now. We've got a 4.2% increase in the solid waste charges from GFL. We do plan on passing that along to the citizens, and we'll talk about that when we get there. A 5% estimated increase from Little Blue, which we don't plan to pass on. And then a 15% increase, I'm estimating that for liability insurance. Last year I did 15%. We came in a little under, so with all of the natural disasters that are happening around the country, I feel like that's probably a good number to go in at. Any question about the assumptions that I've got up there right now? Okay. So we also have 5% estimated administration charge from water, sewer, and golf. I think you guys call that an overhead allocation. I believe it was when I was doing the 24 budget, we went ahead and did an increase to 25, and I just did that same increase for 26. Solid waste will also incur partial cost of the utility clerk salary and benefits. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. Golf, in the past, general fund has transferred $250,000 to golf to help pay for debt service. Last year, I believe, was the first year I budgeted not to make that transfer, and it worked out just fine for golf. The revenues are coming in pretty high. This year, we're not going to do it again. And in a discussion with the golf course manager, and Joe and I, we are looking at golf also making an administrative transfer to general fund instead of general fund transferring to golf. So that's something that we've added for FY26. Again, similar to what water, wastewater, streets, and parks are doing. Loggers this year increased 1.6 in general. Fire was 1.9 and police was 1.7. So those were pretty significant increases for the retirement. Any question about those? Nope.
I'll
Yes.
just, I assume, and maybe I shouldn't assume, or if we should celebrate it, I guess, is the reason that that golf's able to kind of reverse course here is largely because of the success you guys have seen, right? Is that accurate? I'm seeing a yes. Okay.
Yes, obviously with the fund balance being what it has been over the last number of years and the amount of play that we've been able to get, obviously in years past we didn't have that availability. So now that we do have that fund balance, we've opted for this paying our part, so to speak.
Well, I just want to point it out because, like I said, I think it should be celebrated as a win within the city. So,
Absolutely. I agree. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to go through the funds, total revenue expenses. We'll look at my estimated ending cash balance. Of course, I've taken the estimated ending cash balance for FY25. We are on a modified accrual basis, so this isn't going to be penny for penny when it comes to water, wastewater, solid waste. But it is a good estimate of what our ending cash should be in these particular funds at the end of FY26. And you'll see those totals at the end of each fund in your paperwork if you want to follow along. I'm not going to go through and read the revenues and expenses, but I will go through the cash balances. So general fund at the end of 26, we're estimating 9.7. Economic development, 172. I do want to say something about economic development. In the past, general fund has also made a transfer to economic development. We are no longer doing that. They are self-sustainable, and not only with one person, but they now have 3 staff members in economic development. So streets is projected at 6.5. Wastewater at 14.3, solid waste close to 600, water 10.3, golf course 1.27, and the GEO bond, our debt service fund, is 4.9. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Under the general fund, I see federal grants,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
With-
you.
federal grants. How, with today's announcement with the federal government pausing those, freezing them, could that affect our budgets?
So, let me look what line item here.
There's several federal grants.
What line item are you looking at?
I mean, is that,
I see a federal victims advocate, federal DOJ, is that what you're looking at?
there's like federal, GMT.
Yeah, federal HIDTA grant, a GMT, something for the CNC, and then I missed something, I think. Body worn camera. I think
Yep,
that was
so I'll talk a little bit. So GEMT is a Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement that the city gets. So it is a group of ambulance providers that pays money into a fund. And then based on our expenses and our revenue, we get a certain amount of that pooled money back. So that, unless that program completely goes away, that is, I don't think that we won't have any issues there. The Victims Advocate Grant, that is something that I have not heard anything from PD about that going away. And some of the others are overtime grants for PD. Yeah, I don't see any of that stuff going away anytime soon.
I might, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I might point out that of all the federal grants, and I'm just doing some quick math here, I think there's about $87,000 in potential money that would be up in the air, and a fund balance of $9.7 million. If that were the worst case scenario, we could absorb that. Also, I believe a federal judge just today halted that, or stepped in and said that the federal government is not allowed to do that, at least temporarily for now. We'll see.
Yeah.
So we'll have to watch how that plays out. But I think we're in a position that if we did end up losing that money, we would be okay.
Yeah, because the GEMT, there's an offsetting expense, and I think the net that we would receive is maybe a little over 100. So when you see that revenue of
I guess
150?
since we're there,
Mhm.
it begs the question, why has it been 330 and 400 and now it's only 150?
That's a great question. John and I are asking that right now.
Yeah, we've experienced some problems with this year's, and they've changed up their audits, and they're doing them beforehand, and they're also being more particular about some of the data that they're accepting. So it's been a struggle, and we kind of anticipate it to go down again. And it also claimed that our Medicaid transports went down, which I'm still disputing, but we just went ahead and signed this year's while we're going to try to finish reviewing all the billing data to double check that.
That's a funky program for anybody that's, we could at some point probably try to do a workshop on it if everybody was really interested in knowing the details of GEMT. It's not super exciting, but it's designed to try and help bridge the gap for the shortage of money we can bill based on Medicaid, Medicare. And it's audited, and it goes through this whole process, and we actually have to hire a consultant to help us go through the process and to try and defend the money for us, and then we have to go back and look at the billing and when there's discrepancies, and so it's a whole, we're just being conservative because they came back to us with a really low number this year compared to what we'd had in the past.
I have a question on a different topic, if we're moving on from that, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding economic development, council had previously a lot of discussion on retail strategies. Is that who we hired? Okay, I can't remember the name, if that's the right name.
That's correct.
Okay, is that cost for that contract with retail strategies, part of that, is it under the economic development or is it in a different fund?
No, it's under economic development, yeah.
Okay, awesome, and we're still seeing that it's sustainable.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will move on. Public safety sales tax, I've got an ending balance of 2.9. Capital improvement, a little over 8 million. Park sales tax, 1.5. Markey Parkway Regional Detention, 196. Mayor's Christmas tree is 1,500. Usually it's an in and out, 15,000 in, 15,000 out. Yes, sir, do you have a question?
Just what you're talking about.
Okay.
Why is there a ending balance? Keep going, I know you're gonna say it, that's all.
Why is there a cash balance?
Yeah.
Because sometimes the money's not all spent. I talked to Andrea about that this year, and if we do want to spend it all, then we need to do that, and I'll just have a zero ending cash balance, and I can change the expense to match what's sitting in cash.
Copy that.
Okay. Drug seizure, I've got an ending balance of 23,000. Still talking to Scott about drug seizure and DWI recovery, and then the special training fund. We do need to, in fact, he was in my office today talking about how we spend those funds. I know I've got some allocated for a new canine. And then I've got an ending balance in the park fund of a little over $1 million. Any questions on the ending cash balances? Nope. Okay, so we'll move on to general fund. We're going to look at the expenses, or actually the revenues first, and then the departmental expenses. So general fund revenues are comprised of sales tax, property tax, utilities and franchise fees, intergovernmental charges, service fees, overhead allocations, and we're going to start with the taxes. This year, I've got a little over 15 million budgeted in all of the taxes that we bring in. Licenses and permits, 658,000. Intergovernmental, 401,000. And if you guys want me to tell you exactly what line items those are, I can do that. I can spell that out for you. You should just let me know. Fees, this includes the new rental inspections, so I've got 791, 750 in there. Fines, 453, 600. Interest and other types of revenue, 403, and then the interfund transfers a little over 9 million. Any questions about that revenue? So right now, you'll see that we are in the red, even though it's not red up there, a little over 1 million. I am working with Scott and John on cutting their budgets down a little bit and working with some other department heads trying to get some of their budgets cut so we can lower that deficit. So it's still a work in progress. We're going to move on to our departmental expenses now. This is just a summary. Again, in front of you are the line item details for everything that we're going to be spending in FY26. So out of legislative, 817, the senior center is at 170, admin 593, city attorney 375, which includes Patrick and the clerk over at the court. I've got the city clerk at 275, IT at 429, the court at 595, HR 427, finance at a little over $1 million. Finance has gone up. The transfers that we used to do, water and wastewater actually used to house the salary and benefits of a couple of the utility clerks. I've transferred all of that back to finance just to kind of clean it up a little bit. And then water and wastewater are transferring the utility billing to general fund to help pay for that. Does that make sense?
Say the last part again.
Okay. So in the past, I had a couple of utility clerks, 2 utility clerks that were being paid out of water and wastewater. They're actually in my department, so I've transferred their salary and benefits to the finance department under general fund. So there is a utility billing transfer that water and wastewater make to finance So those salaries are now in there to transfer to general fund. Instead of being paid out of water and wastewater, now those funds are being transferred to general fund.
Okay, followed you.
Okay, Public Works or Engineering, 1.4, Inspection, 724, Animal Control, 228, Garage is at 374, Emergency Management is at 225, Fire at 9.1, PD at 9.5, Jail a little over $1 million, Community Development at 442, and then we've got our capital at 1.8. Again, we're still working on cutting some of these expenses, so these numbers will look different, hopefully, when it comes back to you for final approval. Any questions about the general fund total expenses? Nope. Okay, so just a short snippet of the economic development. We're going to look at the revenues over under the expenses. Economic development for the year is actually in the black for $277. Great job, Mike. Street, zero balance budget. So that's really what you're looking for right there. So we were able to do that in street. The debt service fund, we've got a deficit of 382, but we are selling bonds this year. The cash balance in that fund is very high, so I'm not concerned about that at all. We do have some debt service coming off after FY26 as well. Wastewater, we've got a deficit of 1.4, still working on that fund. But again, the fund balance is high in that fund, so if we can't get that down, Joe and I feel perfectly fine with that. We have been discussing the debt service fees, either taking at least one off of water or wastewater, half of both. So I would like to maybe have that conversation with you guys tonight, what you want to think about doing there. And we can do that after the presentation if you'd like.
Okay, I was going to say, when do you want to have that?
Yeah. I know you won't let me forget. Solid waste, we're in the black, 4780. And again, we are making part of that utility transfer, utility billing transfer is coming from solid waste as well. Water, 84,652. Again, the fund balance in there is very high, so I feel good about that. And that is actually with, I can't remember which fund I took the debt service off. I took the debt service off of one, I think half of the other one. That's where we're sitting right now. And then golf, we've got a deficit of 406, but we've got some big capital expenditures coming out of there. And then you saw the ending cash balance even with this for FY26. And that includes the 80 golf carts that he purchased this year.
880.
880.
How about 88?
Now we're going to get to Parks Fund. And I will go over this really quickly. And then, Brian, I would invite you up to answer any questions on the capital that you guys are going to be purchasing this year. So in Parks, we've got taxes and other, and in that, Park has a sales tax that they transfer to the Park Fund. Then we've got outdoor pool revenue, recreation revenue, community center revenue, indoor pool revenue, and event center revenue for a total of 7.3 in revenue for the Park Fund. And then their expenses, 7.347, so they've got a zero balance budget this year. Any questions about Parks? Now we'll look at their capital. As you recall, we didn't have their capital when we went through our capital budget presentation, so I've got those on here right now. I think there were 23 items altogether. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it sounds right. So I won't read these to you guys verbatim. I'll just let you glance at the screen. And if you have any questions,
I'll just say it was discussed at the recent park board meeting, and they went over things that it's a lot of good, exciting things coming to parks. So if anybody does have questions as to what that might entail, as in more detail than you already see here, I know Brian can articulate it because I heard him. So.
For anybody who might be watching, maybe we should highlight a couple of the big projects. I know some of them are kind of maintenance projects, but I know there's like, Brian, if you wouldn't mind, I know, like pickleball courts, all-inclusive playground, those types of things.
Sure. Our biggest project is, we're in the process, we started 2 years ago, up to date, and then the next 2 or 3 years, we'll be replacing all of our outdated playgrounds. And so our biggest project, excuse me, is an $800,000 all-inclusive playground at Wallace Park. We have applied for land and water conservation, which is a federal grant, which may or may not be affected by the recent hold on federal funds. We have a meeting next week to find out more about that. The grant is about $400,000. We plan on writing 3 other grants for that particular project. But just in case we don't receive any grant funding, we did budget the whole entire project. And so if we're funded, then obviously that expense will go down based upon the reimbursements. And so we're in the process right now of getting ready to put out for bid an outdoor restroom complex at Cleveland Lake, which is one of our highest demanded items. And also in this year's budget, we will be expanding the parking lot. And as Joe mentioned, we have phase 1 in this budget to build a set of outdoor pickleball courts, with phase 2 being in next year's budget. And those will be located at Wallace Park, off the southwest corner of High Blue. So, and to your point, Councilmember White, we currently have 5 days, Monday through Friday, of indoor pickleball at High Blue. It's very, very popular.
Yes, it is. Very, very much so.
That concludes my presentation.
Any more questions?
Well, I think, were we supposed to bring up our debt service?
Yep.
Going through best way to approach that?
To tee it up, as she's getting everything ready, if people look at their water bills, there's a debt service fee for water and wastewater included on those bills. I believe the water one of them's $555 and one of them's like $611 per month.
Yeah, wastewater's $555.
Water's $555, so water's $6.11 per month. And so with the healthy fund balances, as we said last year, with healthy fund balances, we wanted to eat our increase in cost. This year we think the balances are still fairly healthy, so we're going to keep that increase in cost. We're going to eat that as well again this year, but we also want to go ahead and remove some of these debt service fees because we can use the fund balance to pay for the debt service if we as we needed. The debt service fees don't cover the entirety of our debt anyway, so it's not like they're dollar for dollar for specific projects that we've identified.
I do want to say that if we do issue any more debt, those fees could potentially they could go back on. If you guys allow us to do that. So, yes.
I got one question for parks, if I can go back to that real quick. You guys are doing the outdoor pickleball courts coming up?
Yes.
I know you say the indoor is very popular. Is there any way of putting bubbles over them? over in the wintertime to free up the indoor courts? Because they're taking up basketball courts, aren't they?
Taken out.
Aren't they in the where the basketball courts and the volleyball courts are?
Yeah, eventually, but there'll be basketball courts built back.
Okay.
But
I was just saying. I know
there
lot
is
of
there is a bubble system available, but
There is.
they're very high maintenance
Okay.
and they're horribly efficient.
I know a lot of places had them, and a lot of them sell used ones, so they're out there. But just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the wastewater fund, like Joe was saying, the debt service fee is $555 for residential and $1777 for commercial. And right now, the numbers that you saw earlier, I've taken all of that out. It brings in anywhere between $640 and $700 for the year. And then in water, it's $611 for residential and $1236 for commercial. I have cut that in half.
When you say taken out, was that just residential
No, it's
or commercial as well?
well, we need to discuss that.
But the
So,
numbers that you were
The numbers
you
that I
presented-
put up there, they're gone. Now, I think that we should do half and half. I mean, they are there for debt service, so to me, it doesn't make fiscal sense to take one out and leave the other one if they're there for a debt service purpose. So cutting both of them back, I think makes more sense, but you guys tell me what your thoughts are, and
I second that.
In terms of, so I heard you say they're not dollar for dollar, but they are still, at the end of the day, going towards a debt.
correct.
So
that we
that's why, as opposed to getting rid of one of them, you're saying it would make more sense to just have them. Sorry, the word I'm using is HALF.
I know.
But is to cut them 50% instead of getting rid of one, just because technically that is still going towards a debt.
Right. And actually, these were in, oh. It's 20, I believe it was 23. They were double this. 22, I think, was the last year, actually. So they have been cut in half, so we would be cutting them in half again.
What's the length of that debt?
Varies. It varies.
Yeah, could we get something on that for our next meeting?
Sure.
I will just send you the entire debt service schedule
Okay.
for all of our debt. But those,
Well, especially if the finance person's telling me that's the thing to do, I'm on board with doing the half and half.
the soonest one will come off is 2037. And then the last one, well, 2036 is the last payment for one of them in water, and then 2037 for the other one. And then wastewater. I apologize, that was wastewater. Water. They both come off 2036, so we do have some time with that debt.
I don't disagree with the financial wizard about any of this, although I think it makes it easier for people to read their bill and see something missing rather than half and half. I just think that makes it easier to see that there's something that's been taken off their bill. But I'm not opposed to doing it half and half.
I totally understand the optics of that. Yeah, that makes sense. If there was a way to combine it on the bill, I don't know. So that you just see that. I can look into that.
Think
Can
about
we
it.
highlight it and say, by the way, starting in whatever, that we've taken half this off and taken half off that? If you could let people
Absolutely.
see it.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
we can do that.
that would be sellable then, and that's probably not the word I want to use, but that would make people more aware of what they're seeing.
Right. And also, we have been looking at, so right now, we print all of our own bills in-house, which for a city this size, it's kind of silly. And we've gotten some quotes. We'll actually end up saving money. We haven't brought anything to you yet because we haven't really nailed down exactly what direction we want to go. But we did talk to you guys earlier about the billing dates, so just be ready for us to bring something back regarding those as well. The bills that we're looking at, hopefully, I know a big complaint right now is people that are on e-billing, they cannot see their bill, like a PDF of their bill. That's one of the biggest things that we want to be able to do. I think right now all they see is like a current balance, but they can't actually see the bill as if it was being mailed. So that's one of the changes that we definitely want to make, because I've heard a lot of people complain about that, and they have every right to. So just be ready for that to come down the pike here pretty soon.
That and the machine we're utilizing for that is past its useful
life,
and it's needing replaced probably sooner than later, and the cost to replace could end up outpacing what it's going to cost us to outsource this.
It breaks constantly, and we can't just wait for someone to come fix it, so we're paying for someone to come and do this for us anyway. Pick them up and mail them kind of on a moment's notice, which is not too terribly inexpensive, so we just need to get to 2025 with the billing process.
And is
So
that really a good use of staff's time?
I don't think that it is, no.
You know, you just running the copy machine?
Well, we print them out. The machine's actually supposed to fold them, and it doesn't do a very good job of that, and put them in the envelopes. In the past, we've actually just broke down and passed probably 500 out to each person in City Hall, and we stuffed bills ourselves at one point. So we don't want to do that anymore.
I didn't know that that's what I had walked in on, but I have witnessed that myself. And had I not been in a rush, I would have sat down and folded some. But
Thank you. It's been a while since we've had to do that, but it's been done before since I've been here, so. So going forward, rebudgeting, is everybody okay with cutting both in half? Okay.
But I agree with, the sentiment there that we should definitely highlight that. And maybe in a even better, if we could put them into one and highlight that all at once, that might be a good move. And even if we don't think that's the move, I still think that, having that on more than just one billing cycle too, right? Like not like, oh, we see the change on one billing cycle, let's remind you of the next one too.
Right.
Just because not everybody looks at everyone, every cycle exactly, so.
Right, yep, we can definitely do that.
I have a question. When will all the new billing things when do you think that will all happen? Do you think that's like within the next 6 months, or?
Yeah, definitely within the next 6 months. Just getting through the software upgrades that we're still going through right now. Hopefully payroll will be through the heartache by the end of March. We just started FY24's audit. Our auditors have told us that they feel like it'll be a pretty short timeline. They feel like we're going to be back on track for FY25 and have it actually to the state by September 30th, which is what you're supposed to do. So we're very, very busy, but I do have a great staff, and they're ready and willing to move forward as soon as I can get in there and help them get that done. So definitely within the next 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And residential, yes, I'm looking at cutting residential and commercial in half. Okay. Any other questions about the operations?
Anybody else?
If there's anything unusual that you want to ask or request, I'm not asking for a bunch of stuff from the, a bunch of new things to be added to it, but as you could see, the $1.06 million deficit we had in the general fund at this point that we're still working to try and shore up. But if there's anything as far as programming that was an expectation or a desire of the council, now would be a very good time to start having to bring that forward. So that way, if there is a way we can get it done.
I guess I got two questions on that front. Just that this first one, I just need to go through this new packet and make sure it's in there. But I'm assuming that I got a request specific to the senior center and that we continue to fund that, and that is I would.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, thank you. I figured that would be the case, but I haven't laid my eyes on it personally. So, and then regarding, so we had some discussion regarding the Powell project. I got the name right.
Yes.
And what that looks like, and I had specifically requested we potentially increase that from 60,000 to 100,000. There was also some discussion about if that needs to, especially you said from a finance perspective, if that needs to be, if we wanted to potentially use those funds for something else as a carryover, then we would potentially need to not just have that be a expense, or I don't know. There was a specific term that you wanted to use, Casey, but I guess I just would.
I'm sorry, I was looking at this.
If you,
Can you repeat that question?
Go ahead.
So when we brought this up previously, you had mentioned. So I said, hey, I'd like to increase that from 60,000 to 100,000. As a reminder for what the Powell project is, or anybody watching or listening, that is the sidewalk cost share program that we have for the residents. And I talked about potentially increasing that. And then there was some further discussion about potentially using those funds if they go unused, like they did this last budget year, using those for other like and relevant things, like a crosswalk, like we had talked about. And you had mentioned throughout that conversation that right now it's just like a budget item or something of that nature.
Yeah.
You said if we really want to plan on
capitalize.
holding that
Yeah, we could
money,
just
we
have
need
a
to change it.
Yeah, we could just create a capital project if that's what we want to do.
Because I think ultimately that's what I would like to see. I'll just say I know I'm one person on this group, but that's what I would like to see, because I think I still think, despite everything that has been discussed, that is still a issue that the residents care about. And I still think that, moving that needle, even if I know it's a, tens of millions of dollar project, I still think even if moving that needle a little bit, we're moving it. That's my 2 cents on it.
So I've got 60 in there for 26. Just so you know.
Okay. I guess my request.
So then are you talking taking what's left over this year and rolling it to that next year? Is that what you're saying?
Really so there's two pieces. Piece one is just, I think generally I'd like to see an increase in that Powell project expense from 60,000 to 100,000, or whatever you guys are willing to agree with me on. But I'd like to see an increase. And second, there was some discussion about, holding that money, specifically, ultimately creating a capital project around it, where if maybe 5 years from now we've got a decent amount of money saved up in there because people haven't been utilizing it, we can say, hey, we're going to fix some sidewalks on Main Street here. We're going to put in this crosswalk that everyone's been asking about, or we're going to do something meaningful that is related to sidewalks or, public safety, walking around.
So I'm hearing is the request would be to go to 100,000 and then capitalize it as a project, so that way we essentially after 5 years we'd have about $500,000 is what I'm hearing, assuming it's not used. If it's used, it's used. That's what it's for. That's fine. But if it's not, then that'll capitalize to the point where maybe we can use it as a cost share with some grant money and turn it into a real project. We can look at that.
Work that up and bring it back to us.
Did we, do we have a resolution for that program? Do we have what do we have for that program? I know we did something last year.
We do. I don't know if it's a resolution or.
Is it just,
So it was
50.
it was multi-pronged because for some reason when the program was originally established, they cited to the resolution by its name and number within the code of ordinances, which then made the fact that there was a resolution completely worthless. Because the whole point of a resolution is it's a lower bar to pass things than an ordinance. You don't need 2 reads. So last year, if everybody remembers, we went and cleaned that up, pulled that out, just stated there will be one. The city council will adopt it via resolution. And then the next thing at that meeting was a resolution adopting a sidewalk program, I believe, that was modeled after previous documents that the city had already approved in that resolution, but makes it so that instead of, hey, we want to change the sidewalk program, all right, it's going to take a month because we have to amend the ordinance and then amend the resolution. Now it's just, there's a resolution.
so do we need to do something else if we're going to?
No, the resolution doesn't state anything about an appropriation because one, you couldn't really do that. That would be binding the hands of future councils and the budgetary decision-making process. So the funding for that program each year will just be decided by the city council.
Current council.
So at the end of the 5 years, if it's not used, then everyone's okay with just city council deciding we're going to take those funds and use them for something else?
I think that's
Some
specifically-
pedestrian project.
Yeah, I don't know that it has to end in 5 years.
Whatever, I mean, whatever the case is, yeah, I'm just throwing
Yeah.
that number out.
Yeah,
I
for the
mean,
record, I'm not saying, yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that it needs to end in 5 years. I just said that as a throw-out example, but,
I mean, I guess if we look at it in 5 years and we're not spending the money like we thought we would on this side, we could get with,
You could reallocate it at any point. I mean, it's not-
reallocate it to projects.
If it's already budgeted, it's budgeted as an expense.
yeah, ultimately, right, like, it's just an expense item currently, so if we have that money kind of set aside and for whatever reason, direction changes, maybe residents say, I don't care about sidewalks anymore, which I would be shocked by, but maybe we, hear that and say, hey, we want to do XYZ with this now instead, and I
That'd
just
be a
think it's
more, that'd be a more effective reason, I think, an effective, reasonable utilization of that money is to let it build up and then say, okay, we can actually do a real project here rather than just a piecemeal.
Again,
here
I
and
would
there.
prefer it's related to sidewalks or something pedestrian like that, but, who knows where I'll be? I might not be here in 5 years, so you never know.
Well, and realistically, we know that the $60,000 is not going to fix any length of sidewalk anyhow. And if we budgeted it already, I don't see a problem with just rolling it over and kind of building a substantial amount so that we could do something with it.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
So am I
Yep.
changing it to 100?
Yep.
And then rolling 25 to 26. Balance.
There
If
goes
we
my-
haven't yet
There goes my
officially
zero
named-
balance budget and street fund.
I was going to ask you where that was going to have an impact.
And if we haven't yet, it is officially named the Powell Project. We said that last year,
Okay. Maybe I'll create a new line item for it.
just in case Rob's watching.
So then we also want to roll over the 60,000 from FY '25.
Yeah, whatever's not spent. I'm sure some of it's been spent. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I recall there being a project of some
I think
kind.
we're going to utilize some of that for the crosswalk that we're waiting on over here on Y Highway and Main Street.
Yeah, whatever the leftover balance each year.
I mean, I
Because ultimately, we still want the residents to be able to do this, so ultimately,
exactly.
somebody will do it next year,
Maybe somebody will say, hey, I'm going to repair this sidewalk and want to take advantage of this program. I mean, that's why it's there, so.
When is that project going to be complete, Joe, before this FY?
No.
Probably not.
Okay. we can talk later about that. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
right.
Okay. Thank you.
So you didn't need all that water.
Well, I drank some of it.
All right, item L, motion to enter an executive session, to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.02.1, pertaining to the leasing, purchase, sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2, pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12, and if the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Yes.
Richardson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
White?
Aye.
Mayor Larkey?
Yes,
Pryan?
Aye.
motion passes.